get you now a report of what exactly the former sanitation worker had to say. He put out a rather explosive testimony that's brought decades of buried secrets back into the public eye. And this is the detailed complaint which started off this entire movement seeking justice and the truth to emerge. We don't know his details yet. This is how he was produced in court, covered completely in black, so there would be no details of his identity that's known, because he says that his life is at risk. There are horrifying stories of mass murder, of sexual violence, of a systemic cover-up that's emerged. Because mind you, what we're talking about, these alleged murders and rape that's happened, is from decades ago. And so there are questions about whether something that happened between 1995 to 2014, whether now, so many years on, they can actually find the truth. Listen in to what the whistleblower said.
I am submitting this complaint with a heavy heart and deep moral burden. I can no longer carry the pain, threats, and guilt from the murders I witnessed and the bodies I was forced to bury. From 1995 to December 2014, I worked as a sanitation worker under the Dharmasthala Temple administration. My duties began as routine cleaning near the Netravati river and surrounding areas, but over time they turned into something horrifying. I was ordered to dispose of dead bodies, many of which bore signs of brutal violence and sexual assault. At first, I believed the bodies were from suicides or accidents, but most were of women, many found naked or partially clothed, with signs of rape, strangulation, and acid burns. I saw girls as young as 12 with school uniforms but no undergarments, and women with faces burned by acid, all buried or cremated under my forced supervision. I witnessed the murder of beggars, often strangled using towels, in locked rooms. I buried or burned hundreds of bodies in and around Dharmasthala, many times using diesel to incinerate them completely. Around 1998, I was explicitly ordered by supervisors not to report these to police, but to secretly bury or burn the bodies. When I resisted, I was threatened and told, "You will be chopped into pieces like them. Your family too will be sacrificed." In 2014, after a member of my family was sexually harassed, I fled Dharmasthala with my family and have been hiding in a neighboring state since, constantly moving out of fear. Those involved are members of the Dharmasthala Temple administration and staff, but I cannot name them in the complaint due to their power and threats. Once I receive protection under the Witness Protection Scheme, I am ready to reveal full names and specific roles of the accused. Those who were buried deserve a dignified funeral. I plead with the authorities to unearth these remains and allow proper rites to be performed. I pray that these horrific crimes to be investigated with urgency and justice be delivered to the countless voiceless victims. If I am killed or go missing before disclosing the names, the truth may die with me.
So this is the complaint in Kannada which the whistleblower handed out, based on which an FIR has been filed. But like I said, this is a story that's rocked Dharmasthala for the last 1 month. So let's take you through when exactly this came to light, this allegation that there's a mass burial site in Dharmasthala. On June 22nd, last month, is essentially when this former sanitation worker first spoke out, alleging that he was involved in these kind of burials that had taken place since 1995. Now, right after that, on June 27th, lawyers came together demanding a formal inquiry into these claims. And that's when, it came into everyone's attention that something like this had happened. Right after that, on July 3rd, is when this former sanitation worker went ahead and lodged a complaint saying he was forced to bury these bodies. So that's when he officially became the whistleblower of this particular case. He filed a complaint, and the very next day, the Dharmasthala police registered an FIR in this matter. Now, after that, as per, in fact, this complainant's request, he was granted protection under the Witness Protection Scheme. He said that this is one of the conditions based on which he would decide whether to speak out and name every person involved, because he said that there were influential people involved. He said that people within the temple, the Dharmasthala temple administration, which is a very, very powerful body in Dharmasthala, they were involved too. So he said, if I'm going to name them, I have to be given due protection. So he is given protection under the witness protection scheme. This was after he was produced in court. His identity still remains under wraps, but at this point, he hasn't given any names just yet. A day after that, skeletal remains allegedly exhumed from the gravesite were presented in court. Why are we saying allegedly? Because this is something that the whistleblower brought with him. He said, this is the evidence that I'm presenting, that there are many such burials that have happened. Mind you, some skeletal remains have been brought. There's still an investigation, a forensic investigation that's underway on these remains. But having said that, this man claims that this is just one of many. He says that he's buried hundreds of bodies. So on July 11th, the first of much more such evidence was put out. A few days later, 3 days later, the Karnataka Women's Commission also stepped in, urging the Chief Minister to take note to form an SIT to probe the deaths. But we're still a few days away from that actually happening. July 14th is the first time the request came in for an SIT to be conducted. Right after that, you had many others speaking out about missing complaints. On July 15th, an MBBS student's mother filed a complaint saying her daughter had disappeared in Dharmasthala in 2003. Now, according to the mother, she had visited Dharmasthala and then had no word of exactly where she is. She had complained then, but she filed another complaint now, seeing the allegations that have come to the fore. Remember again that this man claimed that the burials that he was involved in was from 1995 all the way to 2014. So if 2003 this incident happened, there's a big question mark about whether this MBBS student was also one of the so-called victims that he refers to. Days later, on July 18th, the first reaction came in from Karnataka Chief Minister Siddaramaiah, who assured that there will be a detailed investigation and appropriate action. Right after that, 24 hours later, July 19th, 5 days after the first request came in for an SIT, the Karnataka government gave in to the demands, forming a special investigative team to probe the deaths, disappearances and sexual assault cases. Much needed because also there was a need for an impartial investigation. And then, yesterday was the first time the Dharmasthala temple body issued this statement. Breaking their silence, they came out with a statement seeking a fair, impartial investigation, saying we will fully cooperate, but we want complete fairness. Remember, BJP leaders have been questioning whether these allegations have come to the fore now because it's got some motive. They've said that they can't, that the temple administration must not be targeted unfairly. There should be no witch hunt. So there has been quite a bit of politics on that. As of today, the special investigative team has officially kicked off their investigation. So in the next few days, we should have more clarity on exactly what happens and how the investigation moves forward. But like I said, crucial and integral to really the truth emerging and what's happened in Dharmasthala is an exhumation. And so far, there's been no order from the court on that. There's been no order from the government. So with the SIT moving forward, the hope is that finally post that, the government will give the nod for an exhumation, because that will make it clear on whether this man is a whistleblower or whether he is someone with an agenda against the temple administration. The allegations he's leveled are extremely concerning, extremely worrying, and there will be questions about whether political interference is what ensured that from 1995 to 2014, this was completely kept on the down low and nobody knew. If hundreds of girls were being killed and their bodies were being buried, how is it that there was pin drop silence right up until now? These are questions that hopefully we will get answers on very, very soon.